Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. Spurs, Watford, two sides coming to this game unbeaten, but it's Spurs who lose their first game of the Premier League season. Where did they go wrong? What did Watford do right? Don't worry, here at the interviews, we've got you covered. So on this edition of the interviews, we're going to break down how Watford handed Spurs their first loss of the season. So Spurs, Watford, Spurs dropped their first points of the season at the hands of Watford. In today's video, we're going to break down how Spurs started the match so well, how Watford rallied back in the second half, and what Spurs did to try and rescue a point. When we do break it down, we have Spurs in a 3-5-2. That means that they dropped Eric Dyer to the bench. They probably did this based on the fact that Watford do play with two strikers up front. They want to ensure that they had an extra man at the back, and that's how Davinson Sanchez slotted in. Kane and Lucas Moura were up front. Out in wider areas, they went with Davies and Trippier, who they expected to provide the width and deliver crosses into the box. In midfield, they wanted Ali breaking late into the far post to get onto those crosses or find pockets of space to retain possession. They wanted Eriksen to drift into between the lines or drop deeper to create chances. And they had Moussa Dembele sitting at the base again. His ability to play sideways passes out to wide areas to evade challenges when he's pressed has been key, as Dyer hasn't looked like he's built to cover that much space by himself. And at the back, Davinson Sanchez, Toby Alderweireld, and Vertonghen. You look at Watford, no real surprises throughout this season. They've played in a 4-4-2. No real changes here. You have Gray and Deeney up front, who have formed a great partnership for Watford. Deeney drops off, Gray breaks in behind. We've seen a lot of that throughout the season thus far. Out in wide areas, Hughes and Pereira looking to cut in to offer somewhat of a creative threat and to drive forward. In midfield, Doucoure and Capoue protecting the back four, offering drive, athleticism, and Steele in midfield, looking to really protect that space and looking to push forward. But they had a big job on their hands here because they had to deal with Eriksen and Ali, and that is no easy task. And at the back, Holebas and Janmaat looking to break forward to offer the same threat that Trippier and Davies do in wider areas, and in center back, Kabasele and Cathcart. When we do start this analysis, we have to look at what Spurs did right, because that was a big theme in the first half. So when we start with Spurs, we have to look at them 3-5-2. Watford instantly dropping into two banks of four to start the game. What happens here is they have the two strikers in between Dembele, trying to ensure that he doesn't really get onto the ball. If there was any time that one of their strikers did push forward to press one of the center backs, they'd ensure that one striker was on Dembele to ensure that he couldn't get on the ball. And as they drop a bit deeper, what happens now is that there's a lot of space for the Spurs back three to get on the ball. Alderweireld, Vertonghen, Sanchez, all throughout the first half were able to step forward, play long diagonals, play forward passes. Watford were willing to sacrifice that to ensure that they kept their shape intact. That was a bit of a risk as you look at it. And then with Trippier and Davies, there was really no pressure on Trippier until he moved into more of an advanced position, more so in the final third, closer to Watford's box. But when he was near half or just above half, there wasn't any pressure. And what we often saw in the first half were balls being clipped into that right channel, whether it be Alderweireld clipping balls into that channel, whether it be Trippier clipping balls into that channel. What happens is that they were trying to drag out Kabasele, and on several occasions we saw Lucas push into that space in behind Holebas, because eventually Holebas would step to Trippier and that would force one of the center backs out. What they really wanted to do was to get one of the center backs out, have him beat, and then have Kane 1v1 with Cathcart. That was the option. On two occasions, Kabasele did run into a bit of a problem. The first time he did, we saw Lucas move into that space, turn him on down the right channel, break towards the box, but Capoue was there to break in, and Lucas's cross was blocked and cleared out. The second time he did move into that space, Kabasele took no prisoners, slid right into him and conceded a free kick. But throughout the first half, there was only one occasion where Cathcart had to come across to intervene, but that is where they were trying to find joy. Besides that, there was no real combination between Kane and Lucas in the first half. Kane was a bit isolated, not really getting on the ball. They were often looking to push into that space. Now you have to ask, where is Ali? Whereas Eriksen, well, they struggled to really have any impact on the game as well. But what we saw a lot from Ali was that he was trying to get into that space to receive the ball in between Doucoure and in between Hughes. And what would happen was that on 2 separate occasions, we saw Doucoure step forward and Ali looked to exploit that space. The first time was Alderweireld on the ball. He picked it up. And what we saw here was that what happens, Doucoure gets caught a bit higher, and Ali's already on the go. He makes that run in between Janmaat, in between Cathcart. The long ball is played into him. He's free, but he nods his effort over the net. That was one opportunity that Ali should have converted, but he didn't. But it was a warning sign for Doucoure that he has to keep his position. The second opportunity is when Eriksen finally dropped a bit deeper to get on the ball because he looked frustrated, and that was a big issue for him. So Dembele was able to pick up the loose ball. You see Eriksen slot into the space right there. The pass is played in, and what happens there is that once the pass is played into Eriksen, you see Doucoure pinch. And once he pinches and steps forward to Dembele, what happens is Ali finds that space there again. So Eriksen finds Ali finds Lucas, who's able to turn Cathcart, but what happens here is that Kabasele tracks it well, and he comes across to make the tackle to ensure that Lucas can't get the shot off. But when you look at Spurs as a whole, they really struggled to bypass this Watford backline. Again, all the balls through the channels, they were exploiting the space that Doucoure was leaving. Eriksen had to drop a bit deeper to get on the ball, trying to really create from those positions. Spurs didn't have a shot on target in the first half. When you look at it as a whole, Watford only had 1 shot, and it was towards the end of the half when Janmaat went through 2 players and then slid it to Deeney, and he drove forward, but he fired a tame effort at Mikel Vorm, who started in place of Lloris. When you think about Watford, their only real chance came from Pereira cutting in, and what happens is that he cut in, he found Deeney in the box, plays it into him. What happens there is that he makes the run, underlapping run into the box, but Davinson Sanchez comes across to clear the danger to ensure that he can't get a shot off. But when you look at it as a whole, Watford were sitting too deep, playing within themselves, and Spurs couldn't find any gaps in those channels or couldn't get the best out of Ali, and Trippier's crosses were eventually cleared. So Spurs had to go into the second half trying to find a different alternative, whereas Watford needed to push forward and take a few risks. So we move to the second half, and Spurs don't really do anything special to go ahead. It's a simple long ball over the top from Alderweireld. It ends up being cleared by Kabasele. Eriksen fires the shot off, and eventually there's Foster making a mistake, no one really getting tight, Mora just clipping the ball into the box, Doucoure, it bounces off him and goes into the net, and then we really see what Watford's all about. Spurs got a fortuitous goal, but they were looking to get the goal, and that was key. But after that, we saw Spurs kind of drop off a bit. Watford were looking to push forward, but the big problem with Watford was the fact that it wasn't that they weren't pushing forward, it's that they weren't able to really retain possession. They were sloppy with the ball, unable to make 5 to 10 yard passes. Spurs were guilty of that also in the second half, but when we look at it, it's just about Watford playing a bit more direct, and we saw it early on in the second half. Janmaat clipping a ball into that space. What happens is that Sanchez looks to recover it, but Gray holds him off. Gray pulls it back for Doucoure, but Doucoure's cross is clipped right into Vorm. That was one way of looking at it and how they were trying to go about things. It was more route one. Spurs organized, dropping off in 5. Watford didn't think that they could bypass them by playing through midfield. So it was long ball, it was looking to get the ball into the channels, looking to find Deeney, and that's what they did. Long punt from Foster into Deeney, is able to hold off the challenge, nod it into Hughes, Hughes nods it into Gray in the ground, Gray fires a shot over the net. If that wasn't enough, let's look at another opportunity where it's Deeney alone by himself. Vertonghen and Sanchez following him. Long ball clipped into the right channel, in behind Davies. What happens is that Vertonghen pokes it into that space. Obviously now you have Dini and Sanchez running onto it. Dini shrugs Sanchez off the ball. He falls down, breaks forward towards the box. Alderweireld comes across to cover. Dini's cross hits off Alderweireld, hits the post. And again, like I said, we're looking at Watford playing route one, bypassing the midfield with long balls into their strikers. That's how they were going about it now. That's where they were finding joy. They couldn't get the link up between Gray and Dini. They couldn't get the ball into midfield. They had to find another alternative. One play that was very nice, we saw Janmaat pushing a bit forward, and what happened there, he plays a pass into Doucoure, bypasses Ali, then storms past Dembele into the box. That leads to a cross that eventually gets nodded into the path of Sanchez, but Sanchez is able to clear his lines. You think about the goals that they do score, both from set pieces. Yes, you could say, oh, they didn't score from open play, but again, it's Hughes winning the free kick, running at Dembele, pushing the ball by him, getting blocked off, and that leads to the free kick. More direct play from Watford. The free kick, you look at it, and again, it's just a Spurs downfall. Free kick played into the box. The Spurs backline drops off a bit, but allows space for Dini to get a powerful header on goal, and that beats Vorm. You look at the corner kick itself. You have Spurs players in the box. What happens here is that you have Cathcart pushing forward, you have Kabasele pushing forward, and when you look at it as a whole, the corner kick is played into the box, and what happens here is that you have Cathcart, who's the goal scorer. You have Kabasele with Vertonghen. Kabasele pulls off to the side, goes back to the far post. Vertonghen doesn't know what to do, and then what happens here is that a run from Dini drags Sanchez into the front post. Alderweireld looks to get it. He sees it late, mistimes the header, falls to Cathcart, and he's able to nod his effort into the net. But you think about Watford, once they went down, they played a bit more direct. Balls into Gray in the left channel, balls into Dini centrally and the right channel, getting their runners to push forward. Hughes winning the free kick. You think about Janmaat looking to push forward. You didn't get that in the first half because they were so focused on trying to deny Spurs space. Now they were getting forward. Now they got the goal. They brought on success for Gray prior to the second goal, and now it was about how Spurs could recover and try to earn a point after falling behind. So with Spurs down 2-1, first we have to think about the chances that they did create prior to that. When you think about it, they didn't really create much in the second half after going ahead. A lot of it was Eriksen kind of picking up the ball, drifting into that space in the right channel. He was often tracked by Capoue. There was one time where Kabasele came across, but nothing really came from there. And the only other opportunity that Spurs had was off a mistake when Cathcart got too tight to Harry Kane, and this was a bit in transition. The ball is nodded to Ali, and then Kane spins off him. What happens is that Ali plays that ball into the space. Kane is able to drive in. At that point, all you have is Kabasele coming across. You have Lucas coming into the box. You have Janmaat trying to run, or Holebas trying to run back to get onto it. What happens is that the cross is played in, but Kabasele does well to get across. But when you think about it as a whole, Spurs really struggled, and with them going down 2-1, they had to make a tactical change. They sacrifice Alderweireld, they bring on Llorente, they move to more of a 4-3-3. What happens now? The wider players obviously are going to push higher up the pitch because now you have Watford dropping off a bit deeper. You have Eriksen and Ali still in that space, but what happens is that they don't really have much of a supply. And then Watford make a change as well. They end up sacrificing Hughes, they bring on Chalobah, they push Success out wide, they move to more of a 4-5-1. You think about what then happens is that Winks comes on. Winks moves into midfield for Lucas, and they end up pushing Ali a bit higher. But when you think about the chances that Spurs do create in that time, one is a long ball from deep. It's clipped into Vertonghen, who found himself out in the left-hand channel. The ball is then volleyed, but he mishits it, and it falls to Foster. And that was one opportunity. And that diagonal was when Eriksen dropped a bit deeper, picked it up, clipped it into him, and the side foot volley that could have been attacked after just fell to Foster because it was mishit. The other opportunities stems from the substitute in Winks. He comes on, and what happens here is, again, more of Trippier, switches the ball out to Trippier. Trippier gets onto it, but it's not closed down quick enough. The cross is played into the box, and you have Kane rising to the occasion a bit over Cathcart, but he nods his effort over the net. Mariappa comes on for Pereira. They add on another center back, and Spurs just can't find the answer. But when you break things down as a whole and you look at how this game panned out, Spurs started it well. They had more playing into those channels, but Kabasele did a good job for the most part. Eriksson and Ali didn't really get forward, but Ali did expose the Watford midfield, where they have Chalobah and they have Capoue in midfield, and sometimes those two concede a bit too much space for my liking and allows players like Ali to get the ball between the lines, but Ali was unable to convert his chances. Kane was quiet. Trippier had his chances but couldn't connect with his teammates, and then Watford ended up making the change after going down, showing their resilience, playing long balls into Gray, playing long balls into Dini, and then they were able to create chances, and eventually led to them creating 2 goal-scoring opportunities that led to goals from set pieces. Corner kick, free kick, it doesn't matter. Watford were able to do that. They bogged down deep. They were able to sit off, and they were able to hold out any threat that Spurs were offering. This season, we've seen Spurs in a 4-4-2 diamond, not that convincing. We've seen them in a 3-5-2, not that convincing. At this time of the season, it's about getting results. But again, like I said, Spurs haven't played well, and they were eventually going to stumble, this time at the hands of Watford, who at this point of the season, heading into the first international break, remain unbeaten. But let me know what you guys think. Will this loss end up affecting Spurs? Are they able to bounce back? And what about Watford? What are their expectations this season? Top 4, top 6, top half? Let me know what you guys think. Don't forget I upload videos every day, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And that was your daily dose of the interviews.